professors that have been offered sexual favors by students or students that have offered sexual favors to professors. What happened? My brother is a professor at a large state school. He was propositioned so many times by students that he and the other 3 professors in their office suite agreed to arrange their office hours so that none of them would ever have to be alone with a student, female or male. Seriously. Adjunct in engineering here, male. Very few female students. Only once. One of them began trying to negotiate a better grade and put out escalating hints that a BJ was on the table. I just smiled, wished her a good day, and kept my boner under the table. It actually happened when I was teaching finance. The young lady asked if there were any non-academic ways to raise her grades and suggested there were few places she was unwilling to go. I used it as a teaching moment. I suggested that she get a study partner, sign up for tutoring, and learn how to do the work. I told her offering up sex for grades would destroy her confidence and self-esteem, but working for and earning her grade would help her for the rest of her life. She earned a B. A professor from my university walked into his office to a completely naked freshman girl standing in there with a 6-pack of drink. I don't think she was looking for a better grade or anything. Was just attracted to him. He noped right the frick out of there. Short story from someone I used to know. She was struggling in her astronomy class and went into office hours for the professor. She kept making hints and using body language to signal she was DTF. But apparently the prof just kept slowly moving the picture of his family on his desk further towards her until she left. I was teaching an astronomy class in graduate school when the girlfriend of one of my roommates, both undergrads, offered to orally pleasure me for a B, and the roommate was okay with that. I passed on the offer. Happened when I taught in grad school. After I had collected the final exam for the semester, one of the most quiet students in the class started chatting me up as I locked up the room. We walked to the library from there and just made small talk. She seemed nice enough, but as I got to the library and put my stuff down, I told her that I needed some privacy to finish grading exams. She straight up tells me that she thinks I'm attractive and would like to hang out. She's bold because we're on the quiet floor of the library and it's packed, since it's around finals time. Not wanting to be an ass and a little shocked, I say sure and give her my number. Long story less long. I tell her we can't hang out until after grades were posted. She aced the class. Didn't need any help from me to do it. Before we could even make it to a first date, we ended up hooking up in my car a few weeks after the semester was over. Told me that she was attracted to me from the very beginning of the semester and worked up the courage to ask me out after the final. Kudos to her. School excursion. 12th grade, Germany. Most were around 18 by then. That one girl told us that she's about to get her grade upped by freaking the teacher who was with us and went over to his room. 5 minutes later, that teacher came knocking on our door, the room where most of us were just having a small party drinking and smoking pot, and we all panicked. After about 10 seconds we had hidden most of the harder stuff and opened the door to see our teacher entering with a bottle of whiskey in his hand. No booze here. I thought you're having a party? After 15 minutes and about a quarter of that bottle, he left us again and told us to have an eye on that girl because she will surely not be happy with the grade he will give her, and that trying to frick him wouldn't make it any better. It took us a long while to understand that he came over to make sure we all learn about that story and give him an alibi. I remember asking my history teacher to bang for better grades. Sadly she wasn't down for it and neither were my classmates. I have more home-shouled stories if anyone's interested. I was a TAR for an upper level philosophy class. A student came by for my office hours and asked for help on her paper. I was happy to help, and she sat down and said, "It's so hot." She then undid her blouse completely and just sat rowdy there with her breasts out. I wasn't sure what to do, so I just read through her draft with her out loud and made some suggestions. When we were done, she buttoned up and left. I'm still not entirely sure if she was trying to seduce me or if she was just kind of strange. Anyway, I reported it to my supervisor, and he reported it to the student's specially assigned mentor within the philosophy department. Apparently it wasn't the first time something like that had happened with this student. I seem to recall that she didn't graduate. I know my mom banged a professor in college. Tada, here I am. Not me, but a professor friend of mine. Was older guy in late 40s teaching a business MBA class. Student in her late 30s gives him a card after exam grades were in saying she has liked him all semester and would like to go out with him. That was like 11 years ago. They have been happily married for 9 years now. Back in high school I saw a girl I knew walking around wasted in the middle of a shopping center, so I offered her a ride home. We had a math class together, and she asked me if I thought our teacher was weird. I didn't think he was. She then told me how he lent her lunch money one day and to pay him back she tried to frick him, but he turned her down. For something as little as lunch money. It shook her that he turned her down. I then had to turn her down in exchange for the ride home. Now she probably thinks I'm weird. Not quite the same. But 13 years ago, whilst I was teaching at university, I ogled a girl after finding out she was into Stargate. A month later I was teaching her. A year later, when I wasn't teaching her, we met at a party and ended up hooking up. We've been together for almost 12 years, married 5, and have a son. My friend is an adjunct professor of psychology and very gay. He would tell me of at least 3 freshman girls a year who would offer to do anything for a better grade. He would recommend better studying habits. Not to me, but to my father. He was having a meeting with a student in his lab, and his colleague was working across the room. The student was coming on hard to him, and he was doing his absent-minded professor thing, and didn't really notice what she was up to. The colleague was apparently just killing himself at my dad's refusal to acknowledge/notice what was going on. He, the colleague, proceeded to tell that story at most every faculty party, which is how I heard it. My dad asked my mom out literally the day after he taught her the final class of the semester. They've been married for 28 years. Edit. I guess I should clarify that my mom was 23 or so, and my dad is 10 years older than her. They've always felt like they had a pretty normal, boring relationship to me. Lots of couples meet in strange ways, and I don't think the way they met affected their long-term relationship in any significant way. Guy here had an English lit professor who had a crush on me. She actually gave me a lap dance at a popular bar near the university one night and said, "If you didn't have a girlfriend, the things I would do to you not mentioning." She was married. She even wrote in email one time, "Had we but whirled enough in time." Looking back, I think she had some issues. The real favors she did were writing me letters of recommendation and setting me up with this girl in our class. We were together for 3 years. I had an English professor that would make every class write an essay on whether or not it was morally okay for a college professor to date a student. The hot girls that said they were okay with it, he'd ask them out. I was an adjunct instructor at a small regional college, and a female student had tried multiple times to get on my good side for a better grade. First she brought in donuts, then pizza, and finally one day she stayed late after class and suggestively asked if there were other ways she could improve her grades. Being a socially inept male, it took a little bit for that to sink in, but once I got the idea I kindly asked her to leave. She did, and I thought that was that. Except it wasn't. Turns out she reported me for sexual harassment. Nothing ever came of it, however, since she ended up getting into trouble, drugs I think, and dropped out of school. Even still, it was a very scary moment for me and factored into my decision to leave teaching and pick a different career. My dad was my mom's statistics professor in college, so I guess I happened. Me and my brother constantly give her crap for getting an easier. I was the network admin at a roughly 3,500 student university and had a girl ask me a couple of obviously leading questions about how the grading software worked and if I had access to it. I did, but changes were audited. Then leaning close to whisper in my ear, being careful to drag her breast against my arm as she did so, that she would do her NYTHING I wanted if I would give her a B in a class she needed to graduate that spring. I also had an aunt offer me what she thought was the amazingly large sum of $500 if I would fabricate a complete degree for the son of some church friend of hers. The amazing thing is that 2 professors and 1 academic support staff lost their jobs trying to do the same sort of thing for students while I was there. In grad school, they paid for all my expenses in exchange for me to teach public speaking to undergrads. I was technically a tar, but I was the sole teacher in the classroom and the only one to do the grading, lecturing, etc. I was also only 4 years older than most of my students, so I was prepared for lots of inappropriate comments and suggestions. Surprisingly, though, most of my students treated me with utmost respect, except, of course, for a few of them. When a kid didn't show to classes the first 4 weeks of the semester, and he'd already missed drop deadline, I wrote him a final email telling him he'd failed and could still withdraw. The next day, I met him for the first time coming out of my office. He tried to follow me home, telling me he'd love to show me his oral presentation skills, that I'd know he doesn't have to take the class once I see what this tongue can do. Instead of walking home, I walked him over to the dean's office and left him there to negotiate, telling him another tar might pick him up, but if he comes within 50 feet of me again I'd have to call security. The worst case though was this kid who was just infatuated. He started bringing me food and coffee each morning, staying after class to ask how I was doing, and dropping in for office hours 2x a week. He started messaging me on Facebook, but since my profile settings were private, I wasn't actually getting the notifications. He'd been messaging me really graphic things for a month, and I didn't see them until shortly after midterms. I brought my computer into the dean and asked that he be removed from my course. He was, and the communication stopped. Strangely enough, the following semester, I had a stalker who'd leave notes on my door, whisper into my open bedroom windows, and ended up breaking into my car and writing I 3U on the windshield with blood. They never caught the guy, but I always wondered if it was the same student. Make out W a person at a dance party. 4 days later I walk into my new semester class. She was the professor. We were both a little surprised. Till English lit professors are dirty AF. Not involved in the story, but the principal at my high school is married and has a kid with a woman he taught in freshman year. I'm a professor. I've only had one that was openly offering sex for a grade. A few others might have been hinting, but I steered the conversation away, and if they were, they clearly took the hint. I had a man, maybe early to mid 20s, try to offer sex for a grade. At the time, I was maybe 27. He was failing because he plagiarized his entire paper worth about 45% of the semester grade. I had called him to my office to say I found it was plagiarized and he was getting a 0. He knowingly submitted his assignment through SafeAssign. I spent part of the first class discussing plagiarism and consequences. Still he plagiarized. I have an option to file to have them expelled, but I've never done that. When he offered, he was so confident. He was acting like what an amazing offer for me. Now say this wasn't at the university, but we just met randomly at a bar and had never met. I wouldn't even let this guy buy me a drink. His confidence was 100%, at least on the surface. I shut him down quickly and we went to the department chair and explained the situation. He had to sign a letter saying he understands his actions were inappropriate. It was filed with the college. No other actions were taken. He didn't try again. He kept attending and did an extra credit project that I offer to the whole class at the end of the semester. He passed with the lowest possible score. As a grad student, I had a professor proposition me. In exchange he offered to put me on several of his upcoming publications. I declined. Another student in the department was suddenly on 6 of his papers, and she got a grant from the department for being top student in number of publications. He was married. Super religious type of guy too. A friend in high school openly told us all in the cafeteria that his goal for the year was to sleep with Mrs. P. By God he did it. She was smoking hot 10/10ths. He went back to her place after prom, and she had to resign. They dated for a few years off and on, then married with a couple kids now. I had a biased its prof who consistently gave this one attractive blonde high grades despite her average performance on exams. 2 other male classmates caught wind of this and confronted the professor. He denied any wrongdoing and even convened a class-wide meeting to address the accusation. 5 years later, he was arrested and convicted of sexual assault. He apparently groped a female student in his office. Was a tar teaching a general bio class. Girl sent me an email suggesting a hookup. I immediately forwarded it to my boss, and then replied to the girl that it was against the school's academic integrity rules. Cold gotten me kicked out of my masters if I did. College is way too expensive to get kicked out with no degree. No way in hell I was gonna risk that. I didn't see much of that student after that. I'm pretty sure she had a drug problem and dropped out. Hope she got her life together, because she was actually a nice person when we did interact in class. My advice: make sure your bosses know immediately anything like this happens. People have let it get to the your word against mine stage when allegations start flying, and with no clear evidence the college may cut you loose on the chance you did break the rules. When I was 19 I was part of a performing improv troupe and we'd also run workshops for actors and improvising. One summer we did a workshop at a high school. A few of the girls decided I was cute and began a competition to see how far they could go with me. It got more and more uncomfortable and sexual assaulty until finally the girls were trying to take my belt off. It was trouble, and I had to go to their principal and ask for help. Finally those 3 girls were asked to leave. There was then a huge uproar as they told their parents I'd been hitting on them, and when they refused to have sex with me, they were kicked out. Cops were called. Parents came to school. Lawyers were called. The 3 girls were actresses, so they were freaking convincing. They had me doubting myself and my interpretation of the events. It was so convincing. Fortunately there were 30 other kids in that workshop who told the cops and parents the truth. It was a scary situation and I've avoided even the appearance of inappropriateness for the 29 years since then. Also, frick those 3 lying little craps. I hope they got fat. I was a tar for a college statistics course and there was this super cute girl in my class. She seemed really interested in me and would come to a lot of my office hours, and eventually, since I was into her and she was so eager to learn, we'd have private office hours at all times of day and night. She'd stay over at my place and vice versa. She did well in the class. She had also been my girlfriend for 2 years at that point and we were open and honest about our relationship prior to her enrolling in the class. And all of her assignments were graded by the other tar. She got a good grade because she is very smart and hardworking, and we've been married for close to 10 years now and have 2 kids. Architecture professor touched my butt once. I stopped showing up for class. It's a shame. I really believed him when he said I was talented. He had been talking to me about grad school. I ended up getting a B in the course. Not a professor, and I told this story before, but here we go. One of the teachers in my college was forced into sex by a student with a long, massive list of transgressions. Not good grades, just sex. We were still in a dictatorship at the time and her family was very influential politically, giving her the possibility to threaten him into doing so. Teacher confirmed the rumor when the girl, wasted, decided speed dating a concrete bridge in a car on the highway was a brilliant idea. He was never bothered for it. Pretty cute math prof I had my sophomore year. I did fine in the class, but on summer break she was trying to hook up. She came over one time, but smelled really bad, like within 4 feet of her. All you smelled was a mix of feet, some weird ass perfume, and old lady smell. Did not bang. The crazy really came out after that. 10/10. Bullet dodged. Reposting my answer from a similar thread. I slept with 2 professors. The first time I got a passing grade I didn't deserve. The second time was more FWB than transactional. She failed me because I actually didn't get the material, but tutored me through the same class. When I retook it another professor the following semester. I'm set to graduate in a few months. As far as I know, nobody knows. A tar at my school sent wasted texts out to nearly all the girls in my class. It was a picture of, yep you guessed it, his peen. To everyone's surprise he wasn't reported and continues to suck at teaching to this day. I'm a tar in the first year engineering debt at my university. It's a pretty large one. but the engineering staff for the freshmen is all unified. No separate majors yet, so everyone knows all the students. And the students know all the professors. As a tar, sometimes it's hard to get the students to take you seriously. While you do have authority, you're technically not the professor, and don't have the degree they would, and generally don't command exactly the same amount of respect. Not to say people are rude, but their mannerisms are definitely different. Especially for me, since I landed this job as a second year, which means I'm barely 9mo older than most of these students whose work and grades I now have total control over. I should add at this point, I'm a straight male, so I have this one student, call him Todd, who seems a bit off the wall. Todd is very loud, constantly bragging about things he knows or has done, and the professor and I immediately marked him as a loudmouth and someone who talks a lot of crap, but doesn't do frick all when the times comes. Since the class was largely group based, this was later confirmed by his group members. We are like 2 weeks into the semester, and learning how to write MATLAB code, and everything seems fine. Until Tuesday at 5:45. I'm sitting in my GF's room, studying for my thermodynamics midterm, when I get the following message from Todd. Having some trouble with this MATLAB code. Mind taking a look? ANSR equals INPUT. Is your dick still lonely? If ANSR equals yes, print boy I. Else, print rip end. Pretty sure I fricked up in that code, but we are not gonna talk about it. We did not talk about it, or the fact that he forgot the double equals signs, and used double quotes instead of single. Todd, if you're reading this, we are still not going to talk about it. She still used the formal doctor while screaming in coitus. Nothing was offered in exchange for anything. But here is my story. Chemistry 111 freshman year. Lab tar was attractive and smart. My lab partner, being the son of 2 chemists, had a hard time grasping chemistry 111. So we spent extra time on labs than other groups. This led to more time with attractive, interesting tar, which led to me hanging out with tar more and more, which led to us dating. And now almost 20 years of marriage, I still bring up the time she gave me a 0 on lab paper for not showing my work. Also, my lab partner ended up with a career in a chemistry lab. I taught in a university for a while. I had a student in my Spanish class who was not doing well. I had a break after the class she was in and offered to help her for a minute and guide her so she could hopefully study more effectively. We stayed in the classroom with both doors and all windows wide open. I sat down next to her to go over some material, and about 10 seconds into it, she put her hand pretty high on my inner thigh. I pulled away and told her that it was inappropriate, and I wrapped up our meeting with some instructions on what she should work on. I left and had no interest in making a big deal out of it. A couple weeks later I had a colleague approach me and say that she had heard that I had made a pass at this very same student, and that I had put my hand on her thigh, and that she rejected me. I got out in front of it and didn't experience any repercussions, but that was a bit scary. I never helped another student anywhere but a public place on campus, like a cafe or in a park. Lesson equals learned. I was a tar at a university. Stunning undergrad kept flirting with me throughout the semester. After spring semester ended and grades posted, she dropped by my office and we fricked for the next few nights until she moved to the West Coast for employment. Not a very exciting story, but here's mine. I was a lab instructor at a local college years ago. At the time, I had no control over grades, just attendance, and I could give opinions on students' work and such. No real power. Co-worker buddies and I would go out to a local club and we'd sometimes see some of our students there. One was kinda friendly with my buddies, since they had her as a student before me. I never talked to her, but she'd come around and say hi sometimes. We actually didn't have staff email addresses, so we'd give out our personal ones for students to ask questions and such. The student from the club starts emailing, mostly just asking questions about her project and such. Nothing untoward. Eventually, it starts getting a little flirty. She starts coming over and going out with us occasionally. We ended up hooking up when she had 2 weeks left in my class and like 6 weeks before graduation. We kept it pretty quiet, but people knew. Nobody seemed to care at all. But I think a lot of people just assumed we were together long before we actually were. We are coming up on 18 years together now. Yes, I had sex with my art teacher. It was pretty awesome. This was in high school, so it's borderline. But hey, it happened. Edit. I'm not disturbed or damaged in any way by what happened. I was the only guy doing art, and he was this trendy guy from the city. Curly hair and sort of like Jarvis Cocker-arty. He would bring me coffee and lend me art books. Treated me like a cool adult. We got on super well, and I was a bit of an outcast anyway, so I went over to his house a few times. We hung out on the mezzanine and talked about art. He said I was talented. He started touching my shoulders and we moved on to kissing and laughing when no one was in. It was honestly nice. There was a photography room and a clay room, so we messed around in there. He got fired for sending notes to another 6th former male, and he moved away. But I saw him with his wife. 2 small kids. Twist ending 2 bonus. Lol. Forgot to add. I only got a B out of all, so I was a bit mad in hindsight. Doesn't matter though, had sex. I'm the only male tar in a Psychology 101 undergraduate class, and the professor has just assigned a term paper on any psychology related topic of the student's choice, provided it is approved by a tar and spoken into a microphone in front of everyone in order to prevent redundant topics. An 18-year-old with a body built for the bedroom makes her way up to me and asks, I'd like to know why girls are attracted to bad boys. Being professional, I discuss possible areas of investigation with evolutionary psychology theories about how risk-taking behavior can indicate reproductive fitness, and how arousal is closely associated with sympathetic nervous system responses to danger. She then, in front of 300+ students, the professor, my fellow TARs, and the dean of the college who happened to be visiting, asks, are you a bad boy? Laughs who had. Then I redirected her to another tar to better focus her thesis, because I'm not a freaking degenerate. Not to me, but a story my high school English teacher shared about her time teaching at another high school. Some teenage boy was coming on to her, but apparently she was popular enough that when he decided to make a suggestive comment during class, the other boys in the class got up and walked him out. She never heard anything inappropriate from him again. I once thought a teaching assistant was into me, and I thought he was really cute. Him gay, and most thought he was too. Everyone in the class assumed that we were freaking around, and I kinda thought it was going to happen. One day after class, I was slowly putting my stuff away. He starts chatting me up, and we leave together. We leave the building, and he runs into another student in our class and starts making out with her. I was shocked. He was really sweet and supportive with my work fine art photo. My real prof was an asshole, and not the kind I like. Mad feelings for this one professor. He had me collect the students' surveys at the very end of the course. It was just me and him left, and it seemed like my perfect chance. Me. So I'm from city, if you're ever around there. Him evading. Haha, oh wow, you're from there? That's cool. Me. Right, so if you're ever around that area, feel free to email me. Him. Evading so hard. Oh, woo up. Me. Just email me if you ever wanna get coffee. And then he just started backing away from me, shaking his head and going, whop, TLDR, got rejected hard. I think people don't realize how frequently this happens. It may not be an open sexual bribe, but students make hints every semester about this type of thing. Sometimes it is about a grade, sometimes it is not. If it is not about a grade, then it may go places and sometimes lasts. I actually know someone whose current marriage started out this way. If it is about a grade, it is just something to laugh at. There is no way that sex is even remotely worth a faculty member's years of school, research, and tenure. For those reading this that are thinking about trying to bribe a faculty member with sex, don't bother. Make those types of offers to their graduate students, TARs. They have much less to lose. They have much less chance of getting caught. They likely have just as much ability as the prof to impact your grade.